Hi everyone, Lisa Espinosa here, spiritual career coach, author, and host of the podcast Soul Studio for Your Career. I am so happy to be here with you for day 3 of our 5-day journey through my book, Answering Your Inner Calling. So if you haven't watched day 1 and 2, you can jump in on this day, but I highly recommend that you go back and watch the first 2 days. So today we're going to talk about the second practice in my book, which is called Naming and Embracing Your Fears. Hello, Lara, welcome. And I guess I just want to start by saying, for those of you who are new to my work or to me, as a spiritual career coach, what I help people do is evolve their career, evolve the way they share their medicine with the world, by following their soul's guidance, right? So the work I do isn't about updating resumes or getting more training, although that might be part of it at some point. It is an inner journey. So in my book, Answering Your Inner Calling, I share some of my own personal story of leaving my work as a 7th grade teacher that I had done for almost 10 years to the work that I do today that I've been doing now for 10 years, which is amazing. And I was really guided this year to do this free offering, to immerse ourselves in the book and the teachings there, and to really highlight some of the important components. And every practice, yesterday we talked about the commitment practice, right? Committing to your soul, knowing that that is something that you have to do every day. It's not something you decide and then that's it. You're committed to your soul. No, it's like every day, sometimes moment by moment, we're committing to our soul. Today, the Naming and Embracing Your Fears practice, this was the hardest chapter for me to write in my book. And it's interesting because I thought it was going to be the easiest chapter for me to write. It's based on the internal family systems model of psychotherapy, which I, as a client, have been immersed in for 12 years. I took my basic and advanced training almost that long ago as well, and I have been a practitioner of it with clients for 10 years. So I know this model really well, and I knew that the second practice, naming and embracing your fears, was going to be implementing what we call sometimes parts work with my own interpretations and refinements and shifts. So when I was writing this chapter, I thought it was going to be the easiest one because I had so much to say about it. And I just felt like I knew so much about it. And actually, it was so hard because there was so much to say about it. And it was really such a powerful journey for me to distill it in a way that was clear, that wasn't overwhelming. At least that was my intention, that it wasn't overwhelming, but that I wasn't skipping things. And with every practice that I share in my book, my intention is that it is something that these practices are practices you can do on your own. So with this one, Naming and Embracing Your Fears, same thing. And I know that is true. I do parts work on my own all the time. My clients do their parts work on their own all the time. And having said that, I also want to share that, of course, even though I have all this experience with parts work, I still have my beautiful coach person, who has been helping me on this journey now for 12 years. So there are certain times in our lives or certain situations that it absolutely is important and normal and doesn't mean you're weak or anything like that, where we need somebody else to hold and create the space. So I just wanted to name that yes, with what I'm sharing today, and if you have my book, with reading the book, absolutely, you are meant to do your own work. And good morning, Mary. Good morning, Kathleen and Donna. And Leticia, I think I see. And it is wise to also recognize when you might feel like, you know what, I might need a little help with this part of it. So the premise of the Naming and Embracing Your Fears practice is, first of all, the whole premise of the book, right? That our soul is the wise leader, right? Our soul is eternally connected to Source, is has all of the divine solutions, the divine creativity that we are meant to express here in the world. And we also have different aspects, different parts of us, some people call them sub-personalities. In this practice, I just use the word parts. We have different parts of us. And these parts are necessary. We need them to function in the world, right? Because we are in the earth plane. Our soul isn't guiding us. I mean, until the moment of our death, when we transition, right? When we're here, our soul is really guiding us to be here. Like, we chose that. I know sometimes it's like, why did we choose this? But we chose to be incarnated here on the earth plane. So our soul is constantly guiding us to bring heaven on earth, to bring these soul qualities to the earth plane. And our parts, these different parts of us, are the ones who do that. And so these parts, when all is in right order, our soul leads the way, and our parts follow, right? Our parts follow our soul's guidance. However, through our lives, we have different experiences that can create trauma, that can create wounds, that can create belief systems that aren't helpful or that are harmful. And so our parts can start to believe, first of all, they can start to forget their soul connection, or they can forget that our soul is the wise leader, or they can, just kind of feel like the way forward is always by following our intellect and following our parts' guidance. So when you think about evolving your career, right? So think about my story, right, of leaving teaching. And I shared in the first call how I was super excited and relieved and felt this joy when I heard my soul saying, it's time, your time here is done. And then I felt total panic, right, and terror. So, moving forward from that day, what were all the feelings I was feeling as I contemplated leaving teaching, as I really sat with that truth that I was really thinking of? I'm going to leave my established career as a 7th grade teacher, not at retirement age, because even though I'd been there almost 10 years, I wasn't close to retirement. At a time where my career seemed really to be moving forward, where all these doors were opening for me, where a lot of exciting things were happening. So it wasn't like I was this kind of burnt out, jaded teacher. I was tired, don't get me wrong, I was exhausted, but there were a lot of really good things happening. So when I sat with all of that, yes, I could feel my soul, and sometimes I felt very, very quiet voice saying, yes, you're meant to leave. But I was also aware of all these different voices inside of me, these different parts inside of me that had all sorts of doubt and fears, right? And I share that in my book. I kind of outline a little brief synopsis of the different parts, right? So, for example, yes, there were the parts that were excited, like, yes, I'm ready to leave this part of my career, this time, this phase. But then there were also parts I felt guilty, because I felt like, gosh, there's so much need in, particularly in the Chicago public school system. And I felt guilty about leaving. I felt terror, fear about finances. Like, I was used to having a regular paycheck, so I was worried about that. I had parts that felt embarrassed. Like, if people asked me, well, what are you going to do? Because it was quite shocking when I shared with staff, and I didn't share it right away, but when I started, my colleagues started hearing that I was leaving. It wasn't expected. It was very surprising. People didn't understand why. Not only was I not in retirement age, there was also, like, again, so many positive things happening. So, of course, everybody would ask, what are you doing? What are you going to do next? And of course, my answer was very confusing because I didn't know. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do next. I had this vague idea that it would include Reiki, that it would include wellness, that it would include parts work, but it was all undefined. So I had parts that were embarrassed, like felt like, oh my gosh, people are going to think I've lost my mind, or I'm, I'm this woo-woo person, or that I'm throwing all this out the everything I worked so hard for, that I'm going to leave this, my master's, my national board certification, my golden apple, teacher of distinction award, all the grants I've been getting, all the conferences I've been speaking at, all of this, that I was leaving all of that for this unknown that was vague and not defined, and definitely not financially not even stable. There wasn't income coming in from that direction yet. So those were just some of my parts, right? The parts that were like really anxious and nervous and worried and scared. And that is normal when you are evolving your career or thinking about how you are meant to share your medicine. Like, why is it that most of the world isn't just following their soul's guidance? Like, why are there so many issues in the world, right? It's like, even though your soul loves you unconditionally, even though your soul is always with you, even though your soul does not want to make it complicated or tricky, or like you have to be in some ashram or temple to connect with your soul, it is still challenging for most people. And I'm still working through that. Why is that? It's because of our parts. It's because of our burdened parts. And so we absolutely, this journey of aligning with your soul includes finding these parts, embracing them, befriending them, unburdening them. And we're going to talk about that today. So again, I shared in my other, I think the first Facebook Live, that my experience of evolving my career was very different than yours might be. I am not suggesting, if you are in an established career that you love, or even if you're feeling like, I might be being guided to change, I'm not suggesting that you have to follow the way I did it. Although some of you might, your soul might be initiating you to take that leap. For most of my clients, it's a process. And one of the most important processes is naming these parts that are scared. So a couple of things that I want to say about this. So a couple of parts principles, because I don't want you, as you hear this, to think like I did in the beginning. I would think, all right, I just need to get rid of these parts, or I just need to fix them, and then everything will flow and be smooth and it'll be great. And that's not how it works. So in fact, so a couple of things. One, you can't get rid of your parts. Now, I want to do a little footnote here. For this transmission, this Facebook Live, I'm going to really focus on more like parts that are yours and focus on this lifetime. The reason I say that is because I also do a lot of past life healing work in my own inner world and with my clients. And it's almost the same process, but there's a couple of differences. Now, I don't want to kind of get sidetracked with that right now, just because, I think I could do a whole other Facebook Live, and maybe I'll do another Facebook Live about that. But for right now, we're just going to focus on this lifetime. And if you're watching this and you're like, what? Other lifetimes? What do you mean? No worries if it's something new to you. You don't even need to explore that unless your soul guides you to it. But my belief is really that we don't just have one lifetime, that we have different lifetimes, and we bring in both gifts and talents and wisdom from those lifetimes, and we also bring burdens and trauma from those lifetimes. So this naming and embracing your fears practice can also be done to heal some of those other lifetimes. The other footnote is that sometimes you can carry other people's parts, other people's energy. And again, I'm not going to go into that much right now, but I just want to put that as a footnote for you, that when I'm talking right now, I'm talking to your parts, the parts that are with you, that will be with you your whole life, that are from this lifetime. Even if, I know some of you watching here have done a lot of past life healing work already, so you can, wherever you are with this, you hear it with your own context. So parts, you can't get rid of them. If they're yours, you cannot get rid of them. You're not meant to get rid of them. At their core, they have noble intentions. Even the most irritating part, even the part of you that you're like, oh my gosh, can I just get rid of that part? I've shared this many times, that especially in evolving my career, especially the first few years, where, you know, I had parts that had so much anxiety about sharing my medicine. You know, this specifically talking about when I did my Reiki training, and Reiki is a form of energy healing, and it's, you know, hands-on healing. You don't necessarily have to have hands-on, but a lot of people do hands-on healing. And when I first received that training, oh my gosh, did I have so many insecurities and so much anxiety. And I just thought, like, if I could just get rid of this anxiety, everything would be perfect. If I could just get rid of this anxious part, I would be more confident. I would, you know, just be able to hear my soul better. There was just all these things. And I so desperately wanted to get rid of my, and it's not, didn't start with Reiki. I mean, my whole life, as I've, I would have said struggled before. I'm just going to say, as I've danced with anxiety, I've wanted to get rid of it so much. Was my goal, my intention. And with this, through this practice, to really start to understand, you know, some of these parts that hold anxiety that I so want to get rid of, at their core, they have noble intentions. In particular, there is one part that wants to keep me safe, that is really afraid that if I keep sharing my soul's medicine, that if I keep being bold in my offerings, being vulnerable, being authentic, that I'm going to be hurt. Even if that doesn't make logical sense, this part of me believes that. So it creates all of this. So there's all this anxiety, partly from burdens, but also some parts really believe it's how they protect me. I get anxious, so then I'll stop and won't do it. Now I've been doing this work long enough that my parts are starting to understand that that's not working, right? So, I mean, I'm in such a better place now, but I still get anxiety. Even right now, when I talked about the past lives, there would have been a time in my life, not so long ago, where I wouldn't have mentioned that at all, where that anxious part would have been like, do not talk about past lives during this transmission. People are going to get off the phone or think this is crazy or think you're a heathen or whatever, you know? And I might have parts that think that, but they're quieter now, right? So again, at their core, they have noble intentions. You can't get rid of them. And your parts, the focus with this practice is helping your burdened parts. So that's who I'm focusing on. Not all your parts are burdened. You have many parts that are absolutely working great, and not working great, but, you know, efficient and in the flow and healed. So I'm just focusing on the burdened parts. So the parts that are burdened are often stuck in roles, in jobs, due to past trauma, like the anxious part I just mentioned, right? This part, if I just think of this lifetime, was burdened. I mean, first of all, I was always a very, very sensitive child, and I had a lot of trauma in this lifetime as a child, as a teenager. So definitely many of my parts developed roles, became protectors, right? They did what they had to do to keep me safe, to keep me moving forward. You know, for example, I have a very hard-working, relentless part. I have a part that, like, that's the part that got me to graduate college with 5 children, right? That I had, well, 4 children at the time. You know, that as, you know, I was a teenage mom, and there was a whole lot of trauma and drama in my life. But this part was a warrior, and she was like, you are going to graduate college no matter what craziness is happening in your life. It was like relentless, moving me forward. And so that, you know, through all my pregnancies and all of the trauma and drama that was going on in my life, it was just like consistent. I was not going to be derailed from that focus. And that meant, yeah, and I'm so grateful for that part. I'm so grateful for that part. And now at this point in my life, that part's just like, we shall not sleep, we shall not eat, we will just do whatever we need to do to graduate college. That doesn't help me anymore. That isn't sustainable. It isn't healthy. I don't need that level of, in fact, it's harmful to me now. So I've gone through a whole long journey of unburdening that part, or many of those parts that just felt that that's how I accomplished things. I had to just hustle and work really, really hard. So there's been a lot of healing for those parts for me. So you can't get rid of them. They have noble intentions. They can be stuck in old roles, like that part, right? That part was stuck in this job of like, I must just make sure Lisa keeps working super hard and just does not deviate. And, you know, if self-care goes out the window, goes out. It wasn't even like, it wasn't even, I have so much compassion for myself when I think back on those years. Like, my self-care was just non-existent, really. So then what is the practice here? The practice of naming and embracing your fears is learning to blend with your soul, to immerse yourself with your soul more and more, and unblend from these parts of you. Unblend does not mean reject, dismiss, exile, lock up, get rid of. No. It means create healthy boundaries with your parts. Just like in any relationship, healthy relationship, you have healthy boundaries, not codependent, interdependent. It's the same thing with your inner world. You are creating a healed inner world so that you are aware of these different parts of you. You create this beautiful space. You create beautiful boundaries. And although at first your parts might be scared or mistrustful of that, they don't understand, eventually more and more they start to trust that process. And they start to realize that actually they can connect with you even more deeply when you have clear boundaries with them. So that's what it looks like. So I want you to think about your career right now. And what is something that is really triggering fear for you? Wherever you are with your career, if you're retired, if you're in between careers, then, replace the word career with sharing your medicine. Because if you're watching this, if you're drawn to my work, your soul is absolutely leading you to share your medicine in a deeper, more profound way. That doesn't mean you have to do Facebook Lives or even workshops. Your soul will know exactly what it means for you. But it means something. It's another level, another expansion, another stretch. So think about, where are you triggered? It might be a little teeny trigger. Maybe there's a little bit of like uncertainty, or I'm not sure. Or maybe it's a big trigger, like I'm trying to decide if I'm supposed to leave my job, if I'm supposed to retire. I'm trying to, or, right now with, the pandemic, I know there's so much with careers, right? If you're in a business that has been really affected, you might just have a lot of panic and fear right now, or exhaustion. I have a lot of clients that are therapists, and oh my gosh, right now, they're in a way first responders as well, right? As they're, just there's so much going on in the world. So think about that. Think about a place where, with your career, where you're feeling a little bit activated, a little charge, or a lot charged, triggered, right? And so what is the first step? The first step, and I wrote down notes because I didn't want to forget to share everything here with you, is what I called naming. And naming doesn't mean like you're naming your parts like there's Lisa and there's Maria. No, I don't mean naming that way. Although you might name them something, but I mean identifying your parts. Name, like recognizing, oh, there's a part, right? And this exercise of naming your parts, the easiest way to do this is something that I call a parts diagram. And what you do, and in fact, let me see if I can show you a picture. So you can see this is like a circle and then lines coming out. For those of you who are teachers on this Facebook Live, it's like you're creating, just like a graphic organizer, right? Like a web there. And what you do in the middle circle, in the center circle, you write down what the trigger is. So I have on here, following my soul's guidance to leave teaching. Now please know that this is a very concise version of my actual parts diagram. I remember doing this with my coach, and we filled pages and pages. There was just so much it was such a big decision, so much fear was coming up, there was a lot. So what you do, you put your thing in the middle. So yours might be completing my book, or it might be, sharing more spirituality in my classes, or it might be, retiring early, whatever it is. Even if it's something that seems small, if you're like, gosh, mine is so small, don't judge it. Whatever it is, if you're feeling that, I remember when I was decided that all my sessions, private sessions, I was going to start with a meditation, which now to me seems like such a simple thing, but it brought up so much fear. So I did my parts diagram and put that in the middle, starting my sessions with a meditation. So once you put your trigger in the center, then without censoring, you're going to write down all the thoughts that come connected to that. And so I have on here the thoughts and the feelings, right? So I feel so excited. I'm terrified. I feel guilty about leaving teaching. I'm worried that my colleagues will judge me. I'm excited. I'm embarrassed to say why I'm leaving. I'm sad that I won't get to know next year's 7th graders. I'm worried about not making enough money. Excited, scared, excited, guilty. So you notice it just starts to go around in circles. You will find that for you. And that's very normal. When you start to do this exercise and you see that you're repeating yourself, you kind of know you can stop, right? So it's helpful if you first start with the feelings, like I have guilty. It can be helpful. It'll give you more information if you then say, what's the sentence in your mind about that? So for me, guilty, the sentence would have been, isn't it selfish to follow my heart when there's so much need in schools? Like I'm being a selfish person to do that. So that was a sentence, right? So when you write your feelings, go back and see if you can write down the sentence connected. I am terrified. So that my sentence would have been like, what if I leave and I realize I can't make any money and now I've left all these wonderful opportunities and then I end up getting a job at a school that I don't really like and blah, my brain could imagine all the worst. I have a really good imagination and it could imagine all sorts of really horrible things. So that part of it is the, naming, right? Naming aspect. And I'm remembering right now if you have not accessed my podcast, Soul Studio for Your Career, which I will talk about it at a later time, but there are 3 episodes on there connected to parts, and I lead some meditations in there that I think you will find really helpful. So I highly recommend. It's free. You can go to my website under free resources or on iTunes and Spotify. I'm just saying because I remember when I did those episodes, I was leading some inner journeys that can be helpful for you with this. But for this transmission, as we go through the chapter, I want to make sure to touch all 5 exercises. So I'm going to leave this step as that, okay? So that you identify the parts. And then once you do that, you want to identify your loudest part. What is the loudest, the part that is taking up the most space? And in fact, we are going to do a little quick inner journey right now to find out what is the loudest part right now for you. The part, what that question means, the loudest part, it's the part that is like me, me, me. Even if it's not saying me, 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 maybe it's hiding, but that is what it's saying, because it's like, I need help. I need more love. I need more light. I'm really burdened. That part might not be having those thoughts, but that's what's happening with the loudest part. It needs more of your love and light. So let's go ahead and bring our hands over to our heart center. Feel your beautiful body, feel your roots. Really bring your awareness from the crown of your head down to your heart, down to your womb, down to your feet, and then back in your heart here as we welcome your beautiful soul. And I want you to think about your career or your soul's medicine, whatever word resonates with you right now. And as you welcome your soul, ask your soul, beautiful soul, what is the loudest part right now? The part that is taking up the most space, the part that needs the most love, and healing right now, or the part that needs my witnessing, my attention. And just breathe into your heart and receive that guidance of what that is. And if you didn't receive any clarity, that's okay, it will come. So we just relax our hands down now. And I want you to, so interesting for me, when I did that, I was really aware of a managerial part inside of me that needs a lot of love and compassion right now, and reassurance and reminders, because it's having a hard time. Like, it can get caught up in multitasking, right? Because it's kind of, I can feel it. It's like literally like a manager. There's like, wait, you have the virtual career Reiki tomorrow. I mean, after this, and then you have that training on Monday, and it's just like, can get a little frazzled. So it was just like, oh, I just needed to like really reassure it, like, you know, just kind of help that energy to relax a little bit as it was getting overwhelmed with all the things that I'm doing. So that was a good knowing for me to go back and check in with that part. The other thing I want you to notice is how easy, even if you didn't get any guidance right now, but notice how easy it can be to access your soul's guidance, right? That we were talking, and then I was like, okay, bring your hands to your heart, breathe in, receive from your soul. It is a practice, and you're meant to use that throughout the day. Even if at first you're like, I received nothing, I heard nothing, that's okay. Just keep practicing it. So the next step, we did the naming. Then the next step, when you find the loudest part. So for me right now, I'll use myself as an example, that manager part, right? That is like, you have all this stuff going on. You gotta like, it's just kind of frazzled going, or I can see her with a clipboard kind of pacing back and forth and going around in circles and looking at her phone and, you know, trying to like make sure everything's done. The funny thing is that doesn't actually help me, right? That gets me really wound up, but she thinks it's helping. So that's the loudest part. How do I unblend from her? Just identifying is already an unblending, right? Like, oh, there's that part. Now, to be really transparent, I wasn't fully blended with that part, because it was just like a subtle awareness, like, oh, there's that part there. Sometimes when you do this exercise, you realize how blended and meshed you are with a part, and it's much more drastic of an unblending, right? So in the unblending process, you're creating that boundary. And in the book, I share, you know, through each exercise, so unblending, you know, I talk a lot more about that. Like, how do you do that? Basically, it's like you find the part, and just being aware that it is a part and having the part see you already starts that unblending process. But I share more of that here. Some of these steps will be automatic, like, especially after you do this sometime, it's kind of like you name it, you unblend it, you move on to the next step, depending on the part, depending on the burden that it has, depending on how much inner work you've been doing. So again, for the focus of this transmission, I want to give you an overview, but please understand that in my book I go deeper, that actually in some of the podcast episodes that I was talking about, and you'll just look at the titles, I think it's episode 4, 5, 6, but I could be wrong. You'll see, you'll know it by the title. So you do the naming, you do the unblending, right? Of like, just like, okay, here's this part. And just being able to say, there's a part of me that's scared. There's a part of me that feels guilty, as opposed to, I feel guilty, I feel scared, I feel worried, that you're enmeshed, right? But if you can say, you know, I know this is the right step for me, but I have a part that has all this doubt. Or you might not know, you might have no knowing yet, but you can say, like, I have a part that's really scared about the money aspect of it, right? Or I have a part that that, you know, like my part, I have a part that's having a hard time relaxing because she's just looking at my calendar and freaking out a bit, like of all the things that are coming up. So just use that language, speaking for your part, not from your part. I have a part that feels a lot of anxiety with you know, COVID-19 and the uncertainty that it can bring, right? So using that language, right? Or I have a part that's scared of, you know, incorporating more yogic principles, you know, in my career, or applying for that one job, or being more authentic, or whatever it is, right? So you speak for your part, not from your part. All of those are part of the unblending. So then the embracing step. The embracing step is really not a step your personality does. It's a step that your soul does. And in truth, your soul is always embracing your parts. However, your parts, our parts, can be burdened, can be so suspicious or mistrustful or exiled inside of us, or ashamed, or whatever it is, that they don't actually like allow themselves to receive that embrace, or even are aware of it. So in this step, and I love that this is something that really, as I was writing this chapter, was a discovery for me, because when you do the, as I said, this is based on the internal family systems of model of psychotherapy, which was developed by Dr. Dick Schwartz. When I went through the training, when you go through the training, you get these certain steps. And then, of course, you do the work yourself, then you become, you know, as I've been doing this work with people for like many, many years, I started to like have deeper understanding of what was happening. And this step of embracing, when I realized that, you know, by bringing your hands to your heart, that's the easiest way I find. And just saying to your soul, beautiful soul, please, you know, like once you find the part that is the loudest, it's like just letting your soul radiate love to that part. And even though your soul's already doing that, there's something about, you named the part, you identified it, you did some sort of unblending, that now the part can receive more of that love. So with that part of me that is feeling frantic and scattered and worried because I have so many things on the calendar, my soul already loved her. It's not like my soul was like, no, I don't love you. But there was something that happened when I became aware and felt that, like, oh, there she is. And I haven't talked much about the physical body, but there's a lot in the chapter about that our parts tend to speak to us through our body. And I could feel that part of me, like behind my neck, around my shoulders, tightness there. And I could feel, so when I felt that and I unblended from her, which took like an instant in that moment, and then I kind of brought my hands to my heart and was just kind of like, letting my soul just kind of radiate love to this part. That is so transformative. When I started to guide my clients to do that, especially clients who were totally new to parts work, I was amazed at how like powerful it was, even before we got to the whole next two steps, that there often was almost like a spontaneous unburdening that happened from that step. So don't underestimate that. The power of just bringing your hands to your heart, being like, oh gosh, yeah, I have that part that's really scared of letting people down. I just, you know, beautiful soul, just send that part so much love. You know, just send that part so much love. I've had a lot of fear this week I shared earlier how I was debating about the certification program. I enrolled, I registered. And then last night I had a total panic of like, I made a mistake. I didn't, but there was a part that was having that. And when I checked in, could really feel like, oh, this part has been so traumatized by teachers and was just like so scared that, is this teacher safe? And so I had to just like send that part, you know, have my soul send that part love. And in that moment, that was enough. So, okay, naming, unblending, embracing, so then befriending. So a lot of times your parts will need, it's of course normal for our ego, for other parts of us to want to like, okay, I'm going to find the part and unburden it. Let's get there. And some of it will be fast like that. But a lot of times, no. A lot of times your parts, even after you do the naming and unblending and letting your soul bathe them with love, they need to be witnessed. They need to tell their story, whether in words or feelings or physical sensations. Think about when you have felt some sort of trauma, or maybe trauma is too big a word, you felt some sort of wounding, and you have a friend with you who wants to be helpful. Like even if they have the greatest intentions, but they're trying to rush you through it, that doesn't help, right? If they're trying to give you advice, or trying to oh, it's gonna be fine, everything's gonna be fine, no worries, or think positive, be a positive, or try to distract you. There's a place for that. But when you are in pain, you really need someone who can be there with you, not drown, but just be loving and validate your feelings. Not in a coddling sort of way of oh gosh, this is awful, you're gonna just feel awful forever. No. But just really validating and understanding, right? So that's what our parts need. And they can tell when you're not being honest. They are, so you can't fake it. You cannot fake that. So I talk about that in my book, how do you check, and in those podcast episodes, how do you make sure that you are in a place where you can really be present to this part of you and not be impatient, not judge it, not be scared of it, not just want to rush it, but really just be in this place of bearing witness. And so as you bear witness to this part, and the part sees you, and you hear oh, that's why you were scared. Like my part yesterday when she was having a panic attack, and she was really revealing to me just trauma, especially with spiritual teachers. And she was like, oh my gosh, we can't. It was almost like there's so much joy about actually doing this. Sorry. We send them blessings. So almost there's so much joy, even though I had fear, but so much joy in connecting with this teacher that I'm going to connect with even more deeply on a spiritual level, that it also, this part was oh my gosh, what if we get let down again? What if we get betrayed? What if we get disappointed? And I had to really hear that, right? And not be oh my gosh, this is so silly. Why are you thinking that? Really, that's the befriending. That's the witnessing part of this journey. And again, I go into it more there. And the reason I keep saying that is not I'm trying to plug my book, but I'm just really this is why this chapter was so hard for me to write, because I feel such a deep respect and honor for our parts. For our soul, of course, but the different parts of us. They are like warriors. They are, they have kept me alive. And I so want to do good by them. So I want to make sure that as I share these teachings, I'm not watering it down or missing things, but I'm also aware of the time, and I'm also aware of the intention of this transmission. So I really, I'm giving the highlights, and then you can go deeper, and your own soul will lead you as well. But that's the befriending. And then right after that, or maybe not necessarily, you might be befriending a part for days, for weeks, for years. It might be a process. As you're witnessing, there is already an unburdening happening. But then there's also an official, if you want to call it that, unburdening, which is the last step, where once you've done this, you've named them, you've named the part, right? You've unblended from it, you've embraced it, you've befriended it. And then it's time for this part to release her burdens or his burdens, or some parts don't have gender. Of course, it's already been unburdening in a lot of ways, but a lot of times the parts actually need an unburdening process where they release this burden, this trauma that they're carrying. And the parts know what you need to, how to unburden. This is all happening in your inner world, right? Your inner world. So, sometimes my parts in my inner world might visualize that they're on a cliff releasing all these burdens, or there's a beautiful holy fire that's burning them, or it's going in the water. And of course, you can do an external representation of that, right? Many times when I've been unburdening things, I might go to a park and just kind of be with the trees as part of honoring this wound that is being transformed. So even though I outline the steps, step by step, it is not as neat and tidy as that, right? That's just like as a teaching way for you to hear, like, oh, that's how it unfolds. But some steps might happen super quick. Some things might take a little longer. You might, after you do this for a while, you might have a almost like a spontaneous unburdening, like it all kind of like clicked, right? Or you might have done work on a part for years, and then somebody, a teacher, an author, even a song or something you're reading comes into mind, and it's like it just provides that missing piece for that final unburdening. And so this inner work, it might sound like a lot of work, and it is and it isn't. It is in the sense that when you're doing the naming and embracing your fears practice, it is inside of you all the time. So in some ways it can feel like you can't escape it or something. But it also isn't, because you're not meant to escape it. Because the alternative is just having all these burdened parts inside of you that you're not even conscious of, or that are running your life, or that are sabotaging your efforts to evolve your career, to share more of your gifts. So when you think of it that way, it's so worth it. Remember what we talked about in whatever day it was. What's at stake for you? What is at stake for you? When you remember that, then you realize, you know what? Yes, this is work. And yeah, sometimes I wish my parts were all healed already. But it's also, what's the alternative for me? The alternative would be that I would just be having all these burdens inside of me and not move forward in sharing my gifts with the world, which of course, in sharing my gifts with the world, I am healed. So I want to pause here and end this with an inner journey with your soul. So, wherever you are, and I'm just feeling guided to just kind of stretch your arms overhead. And just feel a lot of energy kind of gathered around the crown chakra. So just kind of want to bring that energy all the way down to your feet. Really balancing yourself. If any of your parts have become, it's so interesting when we talk about parts, our parts get activated, right? Some of your parts might be happy, like yes, 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 or some parts might be like a little skeptical, or wherever they are, or scared or nervous. That's okay, they're all safe, they're all welcome. And I just feel Mother Mary and Kuan Yin and Green Tara, the three of them have just been coming to me so much. And it's so funny, I have a Kuan Yin mala beads, I have my Green Tara mala beads, and I just realized, and I have my rosary, Mother Mary, so they're all here. But that Divine Mother energy, as you visualize yourself standing on that golden path. So that golden path that represents your highest path in 2020, the path that will bring you the most healing, you the most blessings, and those you are here to help, the most blessings as well. And thinking of, we're almost in June, we're almost halfway through 2020, so you're almost in the middle of this golden path. In fact, you can look back and be like, wow, look at everything I've already walked through this year. You're on this path, your hand is on your heart. And feel your beautiful soul present. And I invite you to welcome your soul spotlight, which I've done teachings on this. There's also a podcast about that, but just your soul spotlight as this beautiful light over you. And in this spotlight, you are there and all of your parts are there. And I know you might be like, oh my gosh, that has to be a huge spotlight. That's fine. Your soul can do it. This beautiful spotlight, all your parts are there. And this spotlight is not blinding. It is gentle and radiant at the same time. It is safe and healing. It is expansive and also so intimate and comforting. So just let yourself receive and let all your parts receive this beautiful blessing from your soul. This beautiful blessing for your career and how you are meant to help the world. as our beautiful planet goes through transitions and evolutions and birthing pains. So feel that beautiful spotlight. And in this place, ask your soul. We've already gone through 3 days. This is the last day for this week. So ask your soul, beautiful soul, of all the teachings I've received this week, right? Day 1, day 2, day 3. We talked about the soul principles. We talked about the commitment practice. Now we talked about the naming and embracing your fears practice. Ask beautiful soul, what is it that you want me to focus on and integrate in the next coming days till our next call? Our next call is on Monday. I keep calling it a call, our next Facebook Live. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, what is your guidance? Which of these teachings is the most important for me to integrate? And just receive your soul's love and guidance about this. Say, show me an image of how I'm meant to integrate these teachings in the next 3 days. Remember, your soul is always simple and efficient and focused. Your soul's not going to give you a whole long to-do list that's going to overwhelm you. So I just see images of myself just continuing to do this, where I'm just really sending love to my parts as we go through a deeper expansion. So just going to hear, how do I best integrate in the next coming days? And then feel Mother Mary and Kuan Yin and Green Tara filling your spotlight with their blessings of grace and love. And we ask them to send you all sorts of signs for validation and reminders. And with deep gratitude, we bring the palms of our hands together. As we bow to each other, we bow to our beautiful soul, our beautiful parts. See all of your parts. You know, the ones that want to bow back to you, they can. Your soul bowing back to you. Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, Green Tara, all bowing to you in deep respect for your heroic human journey. And we end with a namaste, namaste. Oh, and I wanted to include bowing to all of you and everyone who's watching this transmission. Now we say namaste, namaste. So I want to pull some cards for you. Also want to remind you that at 11:30, I am doing the virtual career Reiki, where you will be actually so perfect to follow this, right? Where I will be sending Reiki, channeling Reiki to you specifically around your creativity, connecting with your inner creatrix, and healing wounds about sharing your creations with the world, healing the parts that can procrastinate or be perfectionists, and really working on the sacral chakra, which is the second chakra. So if you haven't signed up and you want to do that, please do so. It's $33. It's over Zoom, and it does get recorded. So if you can't attend live, you will get the recording. I sent out a newsletter about it, and it's also on my website and Facebook. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually let me tune in. You know what? They want me to do the angels. All right. So your beautiful angels, what is their message to you, right? As you integrate these teachings, our next Facebook Live will be on Monday at 10. Okay, so not tomorrow, not the weekend. Day 4 will be Monday. So use this time to integrate. Let your soul speak to you. If you want to listen to those podcast episodes, do that. If you want to re-listen to some of these transmissions from day 1, day 2, day 3, do so. All right, what's the angel message for you? Love it. Leap of faith. I am ready to take a leap, angels. Thank you for doing it with me. Look at this beautiful angel. All right, my dears, there's a leap of faith. Leap of faith. It might seem like a little one or a big one. It doesn't matter. It's a leap of faith. Call on your angels to help you, whatever that is. It's somewhere where you will feel a stretch. You will feel uncomfortable. Please remember, a leap of faith doesn't feel comfortable. If it does, it's not a leap of faith. So don't let that be the reason why you don't do it. You know, if you're like, oh, I feel scared, I must not do it. It must mean that I'm not supposed to do it. No, It sometimes means exactly that you're supposed to do it. So leap of faith, right? Let's see what from the Soulful Women deck. And if you're a male watching this, this is for you as well. No worries. Remember, our soul is beyond gender. All right. Oh, love this. I know I say that about every card. I know. In the flow. When I am in the flow, magic happens. And how are you in the flow? You're in the flow when you're aligned with your soul. Your soul flow, right? It's like you're in the flow. So be in the flow as you align with your soul and take that leap of faith. And I'm just being guided to pull a third card for you from the surrender deck, and then we will be done because this went over. I knew the parts practice would do that, but all right. Really, surrender to your soul's path. Your life's journey has been perfectly designed for your soul's growth. Embrace every lesson and every moment. Look at that. And I don't know if you can tell, there's like a beautiful bridge, and it's almost like a little like waterfall. It's so beautiful. Reminds me of some places in North Carolina where I go. So leap of faith, right? Being in the flow and stay aligned. Surrender to your soul's path. Surrender, like release resistance, be on your soul's path. And even as you surrender, some parts will get triggered. That's okay. That's normal. You know, I want to remember to say that it is normal that your parts will be activated. It'll be perfect. Thank you, Lorenza. Thank you, everyone. And I know some of you are signed up for Virtual Career Reiki. I will see you there at 11:30. And thank you all. We will see each other for day 4 of Answering Your Inner Calling on Monday. And that'll be, oh my gosh, I think that'll be June 1st. We'll be in June. Oh my gosh. So excited. Okay. All right. Bye, everyone. See ya. Thank you, Lara.